Well, I kind of survived the D&D scenario.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I was like looking for any advice from like the peanut gallery. Like, what am I missing here, guys?
Yeah.
So, anyways, for those of you just joining us, we were just doing the tabletop with NinjaOne IT Horror Fest, where they subject us to a series of problems that we had to solve in real time. And looks like Kyle Spooner ended up on the side of the you know the demonically infused workers. So we only lost one person, and the rest of us were going to die shortly, I think. So, anyways, I thought like would be a great follow up for us is that I'm actually writing a table master guide for IT managers. And a lot of you are required either by compliance or by different initiatives to do tabletop exercises with people. And one of the more daunting parts about doing a tabletop exercise is how do you design one? How do you put one together? And I actually have some really great ways to do this. I have built these policies. I've written how to do this for corporations in critical infrastructure. And so there are some basic guidelines here. And it's a really great thing you can do for your clients. You can offer it as a service for your clients. Like I will run you through a scenario that's likely to happen in our region. And we're going to make sure you have all the resources you need, like calling trees, backups, and contact information so that we can see what's going to happen going forward. So there's largely three phases of a good tabletop. The first phase is the intro, like the setup of the scenario. And often what will happen is whoever the guide is going to be, let's say Skip is the guide. He's going to walk in a room. He's going to have a pile of yellow envelopes. Remember those little manila envelopes?
Yep.
And inside there is going to be a scenario on a piece of paper. And maybe some resources if you want to put in extra resources.
Yeah.
And you hand it out to everyone. And that will be a typed up explanation of, if you want to be a little bit more mundane, something like a blizzard hits Lincoln, Nebraska, and there are rolling power outages. And you wake up in the morning, you come into work, and your business is one of the ones affected. And what do you do? And so everybody at the table has to discuss what they do in the case of a power outage.
And this is a great place
scenario to kind of be a little bit more creative on the answers.
Yeah, and that creativity and that real world scenario is going to really kind of get the engagement. It's not a very mundane task. It's a very practical task. The one Adam and the team from NinjaOne that was on was, obviously, very entertaining. You don't have to build it out entertaining. If you make it practical, it's still very engaging.
Yes.
So, you don't have to put a lot in there, but in that packet, you're able to set the scope, because if you kind of open this up, you get a lot of what ifs. What if there's a tornado while the blizzards are coming through, and that's just a great way to kind of set the stage for this, so that you feel you don't have to prepare for everything, or you have to run this multi-day long sort of exercise. You can really define the scope here and zero in, and still get a lot of really, really great value.
Yeah. So the ones I have been designing lately, and it's really hard to do this, I'm designing to stay within an hour. The goal here, so we have the setup of the scenario. Then you have the second phase, which is the running of the scenario. You're all going to decide, and then at the end, you're going to have the lessons learned or conclusion. And all through a tabletop, you're going to be writing down, like, okay, what didn't we know? Like, oh, I didn't have Skip's phone number, right? So it was a blackout or it was a brownout. I had no way to get a hold of Skip. I tried his cell phone, but the cell phone towers are kind of down, right? Yeah. He's trying my best. No way to get a hold of Skip. He's a facilities manager. He's the IT director, whoever I need to get a hold of. Okay. I need to tell people not to come into work. We have no way of like alerting people. We don't have a calling tree. So you find out different things like this. And it's important that you discover these during a tabletop, not during an actual scenario. You'll always learn lessons during an actual scenario. But if you do a tabletop, you can learn those ahead of time.
Yes. And this is where, around the kind of the communication stuff that, you can't get a hold of someone. This is where you kind of spread the knowledge out. So if you've got that one master network engineer on your team who, you give him a few syllables and they've identified the root cause of any sort of problem, right? You need to be able to work in scenarios where they're not available, right? What if you can't get a hold of them? Someone's trying to send questions to this, resource who probably has all the answers, but they can only get it through email, right? Yeah. And now you've created a delay, and it's really easy to kind of see how, okay, well, if this happened, what would we do? This is going to highlight an area where we don't have documentation. And rather than just depending on being able to pick up the phone and ask someone, what was that URL that we need to go to? You need to make sure you have those other resources available. So those are the kind of things that you might know in advance that you want to highlight, or this is a really, really great part by putting a few of these little hiccups into the scenario. These things will identify stuff you might not have ever thought about.
Yep.
There's some really, really cool elements that are going to come out of that.
And that's where I highly recommend using some dice in your tabletops to add some randomness. So, I mean, that's just how the world works. That random things happen. So let's say you're doing the blizzard scenario. So I've got over here like one that I wrote up. I've got my overview. The scenario, everything's down. I know what the root cause is on my side as the tabletop runner, but you don't. And so if you ask questions, if you watch the one NinjaOne, we had to roll die every once in a while. Do I actually notice this? Can I get a hold of Skip? Can I see somebody? And you make it more difficult if it's something that's unlikely to happen. Like, do you have Skip's phone number? Like, look at and use your actual phone. Like, you're seeing your phone. Like, I do not have Skip in my phone right now. And so, can you get a hold of them? You can roll, but it needs to be like a nat 20. Like, you found his phone number on a napkin because you guys were chatting one day. But if you want to find out, is the system up? Are the outages going to people's houses? Are they able to answer their phone? A dice is a really great way to say, give it a 50% chance or give it a 75% chance and see if they can roll correctly. That adds that randomness in there so that people have to deal with it. And it allows for a lot more creativity than you intend. But my number one thing I want to tell people is keep the scenario simple. E.g., a blizzard came through. There's flooding in the server room. Bob has had enough of this world and has decided to head over to the beach and just stare at the sun and the beach and refuses to answer any calls. Yep. And that's the way to test critical employees at your business. Mm-hmm. Or start a scenario like the blizzard and have everybody roll a die. Anybody who does not roll over a 10, they are stuck in their house. They cannot reach anybody. They got snow plowed in, nothing they can do about it. Mm-hmm. And so you run the scenario minus certain employees. Great way to test it. Do you have dependencies? So when you run the tabletop, as you're going along during the run section, you want to make sure you kind of have a timer where more information comes out like every 10 minutes. Or that things are progressing, because otherwise you'll stall in your tabletop scenario. Instead of it being an hour, it'll end up being like 3 hours as people chit chat. But if you have like a timer sitting over there as the guide, you can say, "Oh, you now know this. Bob was able to make it in. He had his driveway unplowed. Alice was able to get in because she has 4-wheel drive and was able to just plow her way over." And now you have these new resources available and it progresses, and you want to lead them to businesses up and running, or they were able to make the call that no one needs to come in. We're going to wait for the roads to be plowed. See you tomorrow morning. Let customers know. And at the end, you should be taking notes the entire time of what didn't go well, so that at the end you can create an action plan on how to make things go well and how to patch these things. Who couldn't get a hold of somebody? And that's that lessons learned at the very end. You don't necessarily have to fix them now. You might fix them now. Like, hey, it's a pain right now. It would sure been nice if I would have had some piece of paper or something available where I could look down and I knew who to call. Calling trees are still very viable. Or it'd be great if we had an automated system like PagerDuty or something that automatically announced an outage to everybody at the company. maybe we should look into that as a technology. So, but you as the MSP owner or as the technical person can approach a company and say, hey, I would happily run a tabletop for you guys. The benefits of a tabletop are just, is your business resilient to different issues? If you're in a hurricane zone, if you're in LA and there's earthquakes around you, if there's brownouts all the time and they're always a pain, look for scenarios that you don't see commonly, because usually the common ones you're prepared for. It's the one every 10 years item that's going to shut you down.
Well, and you can probably pull from, your history. So I remember one time we showed up at the office first thing in the morning, and we're, getting alerts. It started before everyone, was getting there, kind of in their drive. And we were getting ridiculously high temperature alerts from a data closet at a church. And, sure enough, once we finally track it all down, yes, they've had a short and the data center's on fire. All right. So, that's an easy one to roll with. And in this case, it was a church, kind of a public facing deal. Everything went pretty well. You can actually bring in some lessons learned from that. And, there's the opportunity to sit down and say, all right, let's run through this scenario. We had one of our customers experience this problem a year ago, 2 years ago, whatever that is. And we'd like to run through a scenario here to make sure that we've covered all the bases for how this could impact your organization. We don't think it's likely, but it's obviously possible. And let's make sure that you're going to be able to run the business elements that have to run and figure out what those are. And it's a great element that you can focus on being the business side of things. If you go to your clients, as so many times we do, and we have all these technical initiatives, it's challenging, but this one's all business. How can we make sure your business is going to run? And that is not only going to be really beneficial for you and your technology relationship, but they're going to see the business value, and that it just, in and of itself, it's a good exercise for their business team to engage with. And it's going to do wonders for both you and your client, which, we're always working towards that win-win because it's profitable for both. Let's lean into these.
Yeah. And to kind of end this up, what I want to do, because we're going to keep this a little bit shorter today, because I've been on the webinar for like 3 hours, is when you're creating these, just use a Google Doc, right? This is the scenario I built. I've got what we know, what we want people to test, kind of what we want them to learn, and then what they get to know. First 10 minutes, next 15 minutes, after 30 minutes, I just kind of put down like, here are the things that as it goes. And that's 30 minutes of the actual meeting time. And so if you keep this quick and easy, then people will want to come back for more. They might want to do a bigger event next time and say, hey, look, let's block off a morning and really run through this with the department heads. And you can charge for this service, people. This is something that you can do, and people love it. It works, but no one really has ever been through one unless you're in a corporate environment. People just don't do these tabletop exercises very often. And so when you're building it, you can see like, this is all my tabletop looks like. It's only like a page and a half here. It's really easy to deal with. So make sure that you're kind of following that format. Just make it easy. Don't overwhelm your users. Make the scenario simple. Then run through the scenario. Let them be creative. Let them be like, hey, well, I actually have an old Rolodex on my desk. Like, well, are you at the office? Like, yeah. Okay, then you know how to call people. So give them that. Like, okay, maybe we need to make that Rolodex available to everybody, or print out a copy or something. And use that and adapt to it. Let people have fun with it. If you want to add on like a flavor, make it a zombie apocalypse. The zombie apocalypse scenario is really great because it takes people out of the equation. These 4 people are zombies. They can no longer help. That's it. And that's to test resiliency and redundancy in job positions. There are lots of ways to do these really well and very simply. You create the scenario, you have a table head, you run the scenario, you do a lessons learned. That all takes place within an hour. You might even schedule another hour for the lessons learned, where you say, hey, let's talk about this and how we're going to fix it. Do we need to have redundant servers? Do we need to have an offsite? Do we need to have more backups? Do we need to have a better way to communicate? Do you need a pager system? These are all things that you can talk about.
Well, and that follow-up is actually really cool too. And I would schedule that for a few days later. All right. Let people think about it. If you've got department heads that show up for this, they scale from, just a few people to, huge events, but take key stakeholders out of that engagement and have them write a summary, an after action report, so to speak, and then assemble those together with your own version, and then sit down with the key business owners there and go over that a few days later. And I can almost guarantee you're going to have the business owner at the end of that sitting back and going, this really made us think about our business this way or one way. All right. It really, it focuses them on there. And I can almost guarantee you it's not going to be solely a technology focus or thought path they're going down. They're going to be thinking about their business. But as you lead them and walk with them down that path, you're becoming an integral part of their team. You're becoming that valuable partner. So I'm repeating the same terms that we've used over and over again, but this is a really, really practical way to get into that role of being a real valuable partner and not just a vendor.
Yes. It's that interaction, it's that discussion, having time with your client to discuss these things. And like, oh, I didn't know that you could help us with calling trees. Yeah, there's several great pieces of software for that. Yeah, they're called pager software, but that's just because, like PagerDuty, like I use in the corporate world. That's just because that's what they called it. It's really just a telephone calling tree, an automation series. So there's lots of things and they can discover in IT. There are other problems you can solve other than just technology ones, or there's problems that they think that don't have technology solutions. You're like, oh yeah, we can provide that solution if you want. Exchange already does that. Office 365 already does that. These things already exist. It's your time to talk about them. It's your time to train. Like we can have somebody come in and train people on how to do this thing. They're really great. But you have to have the conversation, and you are going to learn as much about their business as they're going to learn about technology. Because this is where you step into BCP, business continuity planning, not just disaster recovery.
Yes.
And that is where you start talking about how is the business going to run, and is there things that you can do to help them? Any final thoughts there, Skip?
I mean, we're all struggling to differentiate our value and highlight ourselves in the marketplace, whatever industry we're in. And I can pretty much guarantee you, your competitors aren't doing these sort of activities. And when you can do it and you've got that great feedback from your clients, like, wow, that was an important step in our business growth, then that really sets you apart from everyone else. This is a true way to separate yourself from everyone else.
Yeah, and like engage. That's the core of what Skip and I talk about every day. Engage with your clients. And this is a key way to do it, especially during Cybersecurity Awareness Month, which is over as of today. All right, everyone. It's been great seeing you. I've been on the webinars since like 10 o'clock this morning. So I'm going to go see if the sun is still out shining.
And check out that one on NinjaOne's live streaming there on their YouTube. That was really entertaining. Went kind of long, but it was easy to stay involved with, and a bit humorous, but all the nerdy jokes and chanting RFC documents and stuff like that is there in the chat. So check those out as well.
I'm putting in the chat for everyone. See it below. It's all recorded. It's great to see. All right, everyone. We'll talk to you later. See you next week.